Well, I'm going to get underway at 5:33 and just start by saying this is going to be a very casual peer support group. We love to make our peer support groups nice and casual. We want you to all feel relaxed, welcome, able to ask questions. This is your forum, your opportunity to connect with one another. And whilst we're not doing it face to face today, I appreciate it's still nice to sort of see the names come up, and you may see someone there that you'd like to connect with afterwards, and we can facilitate that for you. So please ask questions as we go. I spoke to Jess earlier, and she's very happy for this to be a Q&A as well as talking around some specific subjects. So have any of you got any questions that have been burning that you'd like to start off with? Eamon?
Yeah, so talking to Deb Mason earlier in the year, I had my appointment over the phone, my yearly appointment. She said that with the treatment with ocrelizumab that I'm on, it may change. They may, with lockdown and things happening, they've noticed that there's a wee bit of variability in what they can do. They may be able to extend out the length between infusions. I'm just wondering if you know anything about that.
Yeah, I guess we're probably obviously doing it on an individual basis. At the moment, we haven't pushed anyone's infusions out, except for those who we've had to do it to accommodate their vaccinations. At this point, yeah, we haven't needed to. You know, if COVID became quite rampant here and we had a situation where someone wasn't vaccinated, then that's probably when we would consider pushing, you know, that infusion out. Overseas, they sometimes test the lymphocyte subsets and treat to the blood test results. So basically what that is their white blood cells, and they like to see what they're doing, so how well the medication's working, and then they treat to that. But it's not something that we do here. Yeah, and I don't think it probably will be something we do here.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Eamon?
No, I think that pretty much answers the question.
Yeah. Hi to those that have just joined you. You haven't missed anything other than me just introducing and saying that it's a very much an open forum, and we're just delighted to have Jess Deacon join us this evening as part of this peer support group. So yeah, Jess, I mean, you're in the thrux of it all with CDHB, and I know that I sent through a few different topics that had come up from our members, and we've got members that have been with MS and Parkinson's for a number of years, and we've also got a number of new people. Could you just talk us around how easy the system is to navigate yourself around?
Absolutely. And yeah, I kind of feel like it's a little bit like the elephant in the room at the moment as well. Yeah. So we'll talk about that first. So I think as people have probably picked up from working in the community or being out in the community, that things are stretched at the moment. They've been stretched for a while, but it's particularly challenging at the moment. So we've had, you know, neurologist sickness. We've always been down in terms of our numbers of neurologists, and we're just finding it really hard to recruit new neurologists at the moment. That in part has to do with the COVID situation, because trying to get people from overseas and find MIQ spots and things like that has been really hard. So the waiting lists are very, very long, and they are trying hard to rectify that, but yeah, it's just very challenging at the moment. Yeah. So basically, the neurologists have a requirement to see all patients who are on treatment, and that's guided by the PHARMAC requirements. So they see every patient who's on a disease-modifying medication once a year, and then seeing patients kind of outside of this, there is quite limited resources, to be honest. And so what they've been working on is trying to get you know, support in the community in terms of the GPs, and build their knowledge around managing MS and managing symptoms. And I think they are on a whole doing a pretty blooming good job, really. And, you know, alongside having the wonderful service that you provide, you know, we're very fortunate to have that, and not all places have a community service, especially one that has 2 registered nurses assigned to it. So
absolutely,
we are very, very lucky to have that.
Yeah.
So at the moment, for anybody who isn't on MS disease modifying therapy, we are encouraging them to be managed by their GP. And then if there is something that their GP can't manage, then they can refer to us for that specialist input. And so when that happens, those referrals will be triaged, and they will either be being put onto a wait list to be seen by a neurologist, or be popped onto my wait list to be seen.
Wow.
And then we kind of see them as a one-off, provide that specialist input, and then carry on with GP care and the care from yourselves.
So if we came, sorry, there's some background noise. I'm just trying to work out how to eliminate it. Bear with me. What can people expect going forward? I mean, I know that we're in an era at the moment that none of us can predict what's going to happen with alert levels. None of us can predict what's going to happen with international travel and being able to entice clinical staff to New Zealand. What sort of plans do the CDHB have for managing this shortage? Even if you're privy to that information, I don't know. you may not have any idea what they've got planned, but knowing that you're in a really stretched system, I'm just wondering what can be done about that.
Yeah, look, I'm not privy to that information. So I'm not sure what the powers that be have got planned. I think obviously trying to find some overseas neurologists and then get them through MIQ would probably be the best way. I know that we have Dr. Fink, who's been on leave for a while, is coming back on Monday, so that's exciting for us. But I'm not sure. I know that they meet regularly, so that's quite a good sign. But I'm not sure what's going on.
Has anyone experienced anything that around the sort of shortage? Has anyone had any sort of concerns about that at all? I'm just wondering if anyone online has experienced, anyone that's listening in.
Yes, I would say so. Of course, for one, it took me a very, very long time to get an appointment, kind of a review, and even had reacted to when I got my vaccine. I had numbness of the left leg, was just seen at the ER, and then told they would see me at the clinic. And even that had taken long, and I would say my MS is quite complicated, and they say that.
Yeah.
And then when I eventually got seen a few weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago, told the registrar about whatever new is happening to me. And he said, sounds like you have a little bit of a relapse, and you have not had an MRI for a very long time, I think about 3 years, and said that you do an MRI. And then the next minute I received a letter to say they have even discharged me from the clinic, and unless I have an issue, then I can be referred. I found that very odd, because for them to be saying, and actually even they say they are not very sure about my MS, and then you see that you are being discharged. I don't think, I feel really like, you've been just tossed out just because I'm managing to manage myself. I should just be dismissed like that without knowing at what stage I am, or even whether I'm advancing or even I'm dormant, which is reassuring for somebody. I found that really, really not the right thing for me. Yeah.
Ingrid, did you want to say something there?
Yeah, I came in a little bit late, but is this to do with, like, you've had your COVID vaccine and then your MS has been affected?
Yes, they scored it as pseudo relapse. I was having a bit of stress, and I knew maybe that they said there must be something underlying.
I was talking to a lady in Nelson that she had her second vaccine and her MS was really affected, and she actually reported it. She spoke to MSNZ and somebody else, but I don't think, and said that she was looking up information worldwide on how the COVID and MS was affected, and she said that it was quite a high percentage, and I don't know what was, that it can affect your MS when you have your second jab. But I had mine and I'm fine, other than a sore shoulder. I was fine.
Mine was the first one. The second one, nothing. The first one is the one which I got affected. The second one, I was okay.
So I'll just add a couple of points here. So first off, Josephine, I'm really sorry to hear that that's what happened for you, and that you feel that you have been kind of fobbed off. And what I'll do is I'll have a look. I'll ask Kate to send me through your details if you're happy with that, and I'll have a look to see what exactly went on, and what the letter trail is, and where things are at for you. In terms of MS exacerbations following the vaccination, it is something that is documented. So what we know is that when we put the body under stress, you can experience exacerbation of your symptoms. And one of those things that can cause stress to your body are vaccinations. So they do cause an immune response. So it's very similar to if you become unwell with a cold, and how that can exacerbate your symptoms.
That's what I understood. Yeah, I was having a bit of stress. And stress to me is one of my biggest enemy.
Yeah, stress can really affect symptoms, and it can make you feel like you're having, new disease activity. But the difference is that, when that stress reduces, or, once, it should be kind of days to a week after the vaccine, your symptoms should resolve. So yeah, that's probably what happened with that vaccination. They have done quite a bit of research worldwide at looking at the COVID vaccination and rates of relapse, so new disease activity, and the COVID vaccination is not associated to causing a new relapse or new disease activity. So that's really reassuring, and we encourage everybody to get their vaccination.
I was just about to say, actually, for anyone who may be watching this on the recorded version or isn't in the chat room at the moment, your advice as a CDHB is that the vaccine is something you absolutely endorse everybody to go and get. Both vaccines, because I know some people have left a longer gap, some people who had it quite early on had a shorter gap, and I know those findings are changing all the time.
Yeah, just a note on that, actually, I just saw an email train about 10 minutes ago from the ANZAN group. So that's the neurologists group that work in Australia and New Zealand, and they've just released the up-to-date version of the guidelines around the vaccinations and what's happening with COVID. So we'll be working on that document in the next couple of days, and then we'll get that new document uploaded to MSNZ.
Fantastic.
So
sorry, when I was talking about the girl up north, and what she found, I didn't mean to make anybody get worried. Like, it is the thing to do to get the vaccine, and it will just last a little while, but it was more just to be prepared, and if it happened, it happened. But yeah, I wasn't trying to put anybody off.
No, not at all. And I think that the thing is, we're overwhelmed with so many different conflicting stories out there, that the thing that we would be advising anyone to do is make sure that you're getting advice from reputable sources and from people that have done, got the facts behind them and really know what they're talking about. I follow so many people on social media, and it's fascinating to sit back and actually watch all these different opinions coming to the fore. And it's great that people have opinions, and it's great that people are asking questions and asking, is there going to be a knock-on effect or anything else? But I think it's brilliant that you've raised it, Ingrid, and I think it's great to to be bringing it up as a subject. So has anyone else got anything? Sorry, Jess.
I was just going to say thank you for that point, Ingrid, because what we have been doing as well is, when we're talking to people about the COVID vaccination, saying that there is that possibility that it may stir up some old symptoms and that it can be scary, but it's almost a potentially expected response. So that, just like you said, so it doesn't come as a surprise.
So linking on from that, Jess, can you talk to the progressive forms of MS? Because I know obviously everyone has a different story, has different experiences, different symptoms. Are you able to just talk around those progressive forms of MS?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's secondary progressive MS, and then there's primary progressive MS, and they're the two most common forms of progressive multiple sclerosis. Secondary progressive MS is the phase of MS that comes after relapsing remitting MS. So most people who have relapsing remitting MS will at some point enter a secondary progressive phase, but not everybody. And there's a lot of grey around the secondary progressive phase. It's not something that happens overnight. And the guidelines that we go on at the moment is basically if someone is progressing in their symptoms, so worsening of their symptoms over a period of about 12 months, and those symptoms haven't got worse because they've been having relapses. So in the absence of relapses, so when they have those kind of acute flares, that's when we start to think this is looking like a secondary progressive picture. I took a call from someone recently actually, and they were wondering if their EDSS score meant that they were secondary progressive. And the EDSS score, it's not like you reach a certain level and then you become secondary progressive. It's more about the types of symptoms you're having and whether they've been related to relapses or you've just noticed that you're having a progression of symptoms. So this EDSS score is something that people put a lot of emphasis on, but it's not really the be-all and end-all. It was a tool that was kind of created as a benchmark and something that we use in New Zealand because our pharmac medication guidelines are based on that to get access to treatment. And as you know, recently that the guidelines around that have changed. So pharmac have realised that people don't enter secondary progressive at EDSS 4 and have therefore extended it further so that people can have longer access to treatment. But yeah, I think just emphasising that point that you don't suddenly become secondary progressive because you reach a certain EDSS. It's more an individual thing, and we look at the pattern of your symptoms and how things have been going for you. And we're not quick to label either. We take our time and it's a gradual process, and it's something that usually you yourself know you're at that point too. It won't come as a surprise, so to speak.
Yeah. For anyone that's joined, please feel free to ask any questions to Jess as we're talking. This is very much your platform and your group. Has anyone got any questions around that they would like to ask Jess?
Can you go from primary progressive to secondary progressive?
No.
No. Yeah.
So secondary progressive is when we think about it from a pathological point of view, like what's actually happening at a cellular level. So in relapsing remitting MS, that is driven by relapses, which is driven by basically acute inflammation. So white blood cells cross the blood-brain barrier and enter your brain and spinal cord, and they cause inflammation around that myelin sheath on the nerve, and then they cause damage to the nerve, and that's when we see those kind of symptoms that increase up, then they'll plateau, and then they'll start to improve. So an acute relapse. What happens and what we see in the secondary progressive phase is that we don't see the same inflammatory cells having the same action. So what's causing that progression of symptoms in that phase is basically the areas that have had damage previously from previous attacks. So it's those, as Dr. Mason likes to use the word, the tattoos, the scars that we have on the MRI. It's basically those and the dying back of axons that's causing the trouble later on. So the pathophysiology is quite different once you reach that phase. And on that note, the same with primary progressive. So in primary progressive, we don't see those white blood cells causing that inflammation and those attacks. So from a pathophysiology point of view, it's actually almost quite a different kind of condition. And so that's why you can't go from primary progressive to secondary progressive, because secondary progressive comes after that relapsing remitting phase.
Yeah. Usual.
So just to talk a wee bit further on that primary progressive. So approximately 10 to 15% of people will be diagnosed with primary progressive MS, and that's kind of progression in symptoms and kind of disability and weakness from that onset, as opposed to accumulated over time, and you don't see these acute relapses. And, oh, sorry, I'm just going to, Ingrid.
I was just going to say there was a Zoom meeting last night with MSNZ, and they had a neurologist from Australia, and they were talking about exactly what we're talking about now. And primary and secondary, they've never really looked at anything that could help. Like we've got the drugs for the relapsing remitting. So I think they're trialing one now for primary, because Bruce, somebody that some of us know, and Nelson has been asked if he wants to go on a trial for the drug, and I can't remember, it sounds like fingolimod, it's something like singolimod or something.
Yes. Siponimod, I think you mean, Ingrid.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's good news that they said they need to look at helping people with primary and with secondary, because nobody's sort of done that in the past.
My understanding is Siponimod's Tessica is more for secondary progressive, not primary so much.
Yes, yeah, that's my understanding. And I think that's what they're using it overseas for currently.
Yep.
But we just don't really have it here yet. So, and then just to build on that, Ingrid, so in terms of looking at treatment options for primary progressive MS and secondary progressive MS, the reason why we don't have any medications available is because, once again, the medications that we use in relapsing remitting MS are working on those white blood cells that cause the inflammation. So because that doesn't happen in primary progressive MS, the medications that we have for relapsing remitting won't make any difference to those who have got primary progressive MS, unfortunately. So the trials that they need to be really looking into is those trials that look at, remyelination and looking at trying to repair the damage. And I think that is where, the body of research is going at the moment.
I mean, Bruce is not primary. I wonder what trial he's going on.
So the other thing we're looking at the moment, and we're about to start recruiting for, we're going to run two primary progressive trials in Canterbury. One is going to be using ocrelizumab. So it will be looking at, there'll be a placebo trial, so half the participants will get ocrelizumab, half the participants will get a placebo, so no medication, and it will be for primary progressive. So we're starting to look to recruit for that shortly. We're hoping to get people on board before Christmas, so that's quite exciting. The other trial we're looking at is a medication called fenebrutinib, which is really hard to say, and once again that is for primary progressive as well, and there'll be that trial will be looking at ocrelizumab versus fenebrutinib. So with that one, you will either way you'll get a medication. You won't know which one you're on, but either way you'll be getting something. So that's also very exciting. So we'll be looking at recruiting for that trial after we've got the ocrelizumab placebo trial up and running.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just happy I've just been finally put under an umbrella of primary progressive, so that's a kind of good news, or to know what's what.
Absolutely.
And just a note on that as well, Gail, is that, and as you've personally experienced, that sometimes it can be really challenging to get that finalised diagnosis, because there can be a bit of grey as well, depending on the onset of symptoms, how they presented, and sometimes it is kind of waiting to see, do you have another relapse, or do you get that progression of symptoms, and then we can make a final diagnosis. So I can appreciate that it can be really, really challenging in the beginning when you don't get that.
No.
Yeah.
It's all good though.
Jessica, how do you spell fenoprenil?
I'll get back to you on that one.
I haven't heard of that one before.
No, I will. I'll send you a text message later on with it.
Just going back to what we were discussing at the beginning, Jess, what can people expect when they're accessing CDHB at the moment, given that shortage of resources that you've got and the fact that you are so stretched? What can our members expect?
If you have relapsing remitting MS, you will see your neurologist once a year. When I say see, I mean that half will get a phone consult and the other half will be seen in person, and then that alternates each year. And then when I also use the word your neurologist, that can sometimes be the registrar as well, and the neurologist is always there. And sometimes you get me. So depending on how the day's going and things like that, it'll be one of the three of us. If you aren't currently on a treatment, then if you've got concerns, you really need to go and see your GP. If you're on a wait list to be seen by a neurologist, it's long, yeah. So I would advise, if your problems flare back up and you have concerns, go back to your GP, and the GP can then send another referral, which can be re-triaged and then can either come to me, or depending on what the neurologist, if they need to escalate that referral.
I'm certainly not here to endorse anyone not going the CDHB route, but is it the same in the private sector?
Absolutely. And I think for anybody who has reached out basically because they haven't got through the public system, probably have a wee bit more empathy now for the public system, because they've realised how long the wait lists are for private as well. So it's a nationwide issue, but it's definitely felt heavily in Christchurch at the moment.
And that's certainly the feedback we're getting. Sorry, someone else was going to say
that's
something.
That's right. When I was first diagnosed, I went privately, and that was to go privately, because you always consider private. The public, you wait for ages, and private, you basically get straight through. It took me 3 months to get an appointment with Deb privately.
Wow. Yeah.
So I think Deb's waiting list privately now is about 6 months.
Wow. Gosh. That's crazy.
I'm just wondering. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm just wondering, like, what you would advise. Say if something happens and you get a new symptom or whatever, and you mention it to your GP, and then your GP is literally like, "Okay, make sure you tell you guys at the CDHB what that is." Like, I don't really know exactly how much the GP can do for us.
Yeah, no, look, I understand that. And we have set up some quite clear guidelines for the GPs in terms of, there's a thing called health pathways. So basically guidelines around, what do these symptoms mean? Are they exacerbation of old symptoms? Is it a fluctuation? Is it a bad day? Is this something I should be concerned about? Is this a new relapse? Or is this something completely else? And And so we've got quite clear guidelines on health pathways for them to follow. And so the things that we really get, I guess, more concerned about is if you experience any new symptoms that last longer than 24 hours, that's when we really want to know. And look, if you're someone who has my contact details and, known to me, definitely give me a call. And same if you're new to the service as well, you can give me a call and I can advise. So if I feel like your GP can manage it, I might say, look, go make an appointment with your GP. And then if they're really concerned, they'll probably usually do a neurological assessment. They will check your bloods and urine and make sure there's no infections. And then if they're really concerned, they will refer you through to neurology and we'll pick that up. So definitely we want to hear about anything in terms of new symptoms that are lasting longer than 24 hours. Yeah. And just on that note, for people who are, so as we've talked about, the fact that the access to treatment has, not the getting on treatment, but the guidelines have changed slightly, and so that people who have an EDSS level up to 6 can be on treatment. Now, the getting on treatment hasn't changed as such, but if someone knows that they have EDSS between 4 and 6 and they have a new relapse, so symptoms that are new that are lasting longer than 24 hours, and they know that they can walk 100 metres with a stick, definitely, get in touch with your GP, raise that issue and get a referral, and we can go from there and assess and see if you are eligible to get on treatment.
You can have a walking frame as well as a stick. I just thought.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Why would walking, how far you can walk determine you are getting the treatment? Because your MS can be active, but you are still walking well. You are still living your life well, but it is active.
Yes, so that is the big question. And so that's why they worked really hard to try and expand that criteria, because where it sat at stopping being able to get on treatment at 4 meant that people still had to be able to walk 500 metres and unaided, which that basically a lot of people were reaching that but still having active MS, and it wasn't fair to be able to stop treatment for those patients just because they couldn't walk 500 metres, which is a really long way. So they have expanded that. So basically the 100 metres with assistance links into that EDSS of about 6.
But does it mean that you have this disability has to have come in for you to qualify for the medication?
Sorry, I just missed the start of that question.
I'm asking, that criteria is like you get approval already when you have the disability has come in. Not when you are, you are on your, to me, it is not like it is to prevent you from going to the level of disability. It's like you already when.
Oh, sorry, I see what you're saying. No, so what I'm talking about is that, so yes, you could, if you meet eligibility criteria early on, so when you're first diagnosed, then you can start treatment then, as long as your EDSS score is less than 6. But what I was just referring to in that last section was for people who may have been on treatment and then fell off treatment because they reached EDSS 4, where the guidelines were previously, and then if they have a relapse now or in the future and they still have an EDSS less than 6, then we could possibly look at getting them back on treatment.
Okay. And what is the criteria of MRIs for checkup, to monitor somebody's progress? Because my background where I was diagnosed was in Australia, where it was yearly, you have to have a yearly MRI for checkup what about here? When do they, because like now I know I have 3 years since the last MRI. What is the criteria, or what do you expect?
Yeah, so we don't have the capacity to scan everyone yearly, and actually even if we could, we wouldn't, and that's because for people who are in secondary progressive phase or primary progressive phase, having and doing an MRI doesn't change the management of the condition. So it doesn't tell us a lot, to be honest, and that's why we don't routinely do it. So the focus really is on the holistic care and symptom management for those patients. The MRI doesn't give us really any information.
Okay.
We've got a question here from Rebecca Roper G. How long is typical for the wait and see period? And you'll have to excuse me on this. It just says where RR versus PP is undefined.
Yeah, good question. I don't think that there's no set guidelines around that. It would be more a situation, an individual situation, and I guess then, you know, meeting back in with a neurologist or having a chat to me around where you're sitting and what we need to do and whether you need to see your neurologist again and you know what symptoms, if any, you're experiencing. And once again, if you're sitting in that category where you're unsure if you're relapsing or remitting MS or primary progressive and you haven't had another relapse, once again, our management of you in that period wouldn't change either, because you are assuming that in that period you wouldn't be eligible for treatment until you had another relapse. And then also the management, the holistic management of relapsing, remitting MS in terms of diet, lifestyle, all those fabulous things are going to be exactly the same no matter what type of MS you have.
Going on to that, Jess, as a great lead-in, because Tara, our physiotherapist, who many of you will know, one of the things that she said would be great to have covered is an overview of recommendations for health, diet and physical activity levels, and just a general view really, as this sits well with the self-management that is being promoted. Are you able to just talk around that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, those holistic care packages, I mean, they're so incredibly important, and I really can't emphasize how important they are to managing your MS and making huge differences to kind of risk of relapse, disease progression. They've done a lot of research around this, and it is pretty much the most important things that you can do. So one of the main things that we know is that smoking is pretty horrendous for MS, and I can't emphasize that enough. So if you've got any smokers amongst us, I would strongly encourage you to look at giving up. That has been directly linked to increased numbers of relapses and fastening that disease progression. And this is everything I'm going to talk about is all about the MS Brain Health Initiative. So it's something that a lot of teams around the world have been involved in, and it's got a lot of references and a lot of guidelines involved in that. So if anybody wants any more information around that, just get in touch with Kate and I can send through some information. Exercise is very, very good. So they've actually looked at the research around exercise and the effect on the brain, and so they've got research to say that exercise can help neuroplasticity. So what that is basically the brain's ability to bounce back from damage and to keep going, and also abilities on remyelination. So it's pretty phenomenal, really, the research that they're doing. Also really, really good for cognitive function, so protecting your cognitive function, keeping you well. And then, of course, for muscle strength and for mood and mental health. So we know that, unfortunately, people living with MS are at increased risk of developing anxiety and depression compared to the general population. So exercise helps protect against that. In terms of what exercise to do, and Tara will be, an advocate for this. I watched a recent lecture on the best type of exercise for people living with MS, and they talked about HIIT. So it's this thing called high intensity interval exercise, and basically it's the idea that you rest for as long as you work out. And the good thing about this is that, if you've only got 10 minutes, that's sometimes all you need, because it is quite hard yakka. So it's thinking about working out for 30 seconds, 20 seconds, then resting for 30 seconds. And there's quite a lot of information around about how the best way to do this. And so the theory around interval training is basically working on muscular fatigue. So what we know is that your symptoms can get worse when you're exercising, or exacerbated when you're exercising. It's not causing any further damage to the nerve, but it's basically just making your known symptoms a little bit more obvious. And I think a lot of people get a lot of fear around exercise because that can happen. And it's really important about busting those fear myths that there is any damage occurring.
I've had a comment come in here that one of our members found, it was Linda, found gyrotonic exercises very good. I hope I pronounced that right.
Oh, I don't actually know anything about that. Would that person like to expand on what gyrotonic exercises are?
Yeah, Linda, are you able to?
Yes, I can. I have also put the link there where that is happening in Christchurch. So basically what it is, it's Pilates exercises with weights. So this lady, Brenda, is really working on getting movement, but while she's doing the movement, it's the whole time left, right brain exercises with it. So I have to say, you come out of the exhausted, not physically as much, but you're tired because you need to think. And she does a lot of, for instance, with me, my left side is much weaker than the right side. So she would quite often do the exercises with the right side and then the left side, so that the left side understand what it needs to do. And I can really say that makes a huge difference. I've seen the most of it when we were in lockdown for that 3 weeks that I couldn't go, and then again go, and suddenly I could walk straight up again. Wow. Which to me is an enormous thing. So she does a lot of that. The other thing that I've also seen is very good for me is to go and see a chiro every 3 weeks. And she just put the alignment right again.
That's fantastic feedback. I've made a note, Linda, of the website that you've put up, and I'll flick that out to everyone by email so that they can take a look. That's
yes,
really
that.
fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I think she would be open for you to come and have a trial and see how that works. She with me, she works one-on-one, but she also do bigger classes, but she does one-on-one because she guides my left side quite a bit with her hand.
Fantastic. And Linda, the other question that you asked just before that, when Jess was talking about the effects of smoking, you were asking, how does secondary smoke affect MS, Jess?
Yeah, so I think a very similar effect in terms of, I would avoid it at all costs if you can, and encourage your loved ones around you to give up smoking, or at the very least, if they are smoking, try and get them to get outside and not smoke in shared spaces like the car.
Yes.
We have done that, but he still comes in and I smell it. So I go like, okay, I've done what I can.
I did see a question before from EP asking if I could share the HIIT lecture. The lecture was done by Neuromuscular Physio up in Auckland, and it was shared via portal on a MS Nurse's website. So I'll see if I can. I'm not sure if it's one of those things that won't work as soon as I try and share it, but I will see what I can do.
I just wanted to jump in and say that I went to one of the talks that she did in Auckland, And it was amazing. And especially for me, I've noticed that like exercising for how many minutes and then resting for the same amount of minutes has been a game changer. And it's meant that I've been able to do like a lot more walks that my family or my partner have been able to do as well. And we just know that like we stop for X amount of time after X amount of time. And yeah, it's been really awesome. And she was great.
Yeah, she's
really
her
cool,
talk.
yeah.
She's a very good speaker. And she's pretty amazing actually.
What was her name again, Jess?
I don't know. I would have to find.
Same.
Other Jess. Oh, we're both called Jess. That's so confusing.
I'll also have to find, because I can't quite remember on the top of my head, but I will find it out. It might be worth actually seeing if she would give us a talk. Actually,
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of doing something, big that everyone could come along to. We might need to get a different venue sponsored. I mean, or it could be something that we do next year when we get into the Braintree building, which will be fantastic because we will have, even more space to work with. But that's really good feedback that Jess Bryan, thank you, that you liked. Yeah.
The physio's name was Jilly Davies, Davies.
Oh, fantastic.
Thanks,
She's
Elspeth.
a neurophysio in Auckland. I just looked up her information today, actually. She does have a YouTube channel.
Awesome.
Or MS. I've got the name of it in the office.
I will link that in the follow-up email as well. Thanks, Elspeth.
Laura had a hand up for quite a while. Laura.
Oh, yeah. Laura, I'm so sorry. Do you know what? Everyone's moving around on my screen. I don't know what happened. My apologies, Laura. For some reason, Laura, we've got you on. We can't hear you. Bear with me.
You're talking about Laura Mills, me?
Oh, no, Laura Sheridan.
Oh, too many Lauras. Hello.
Laura Sheridan, we can't hear you. Hold on. I know that your mute is definitely off. You might want to go down to the bottom of your page where it says mute. There's an arrow next to it, and go in and actually just test your speaker. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. I had to do that earlier because for some reason mine wouldn't work to start with. Just whilst you're doing that, Laura, I've got another one here from Eamon, currently uses the cross trainer at the gym. Are you still, no, he's gone. I use the cross trainer at the gym very much, hit my average 150 BPM heart rate and maximum over 180, and I hope it helps because I hate it. That's very honest of you, Eamon. Oh. Just see if anything.
So just while we're waiting for Laura, I'll just say, and of course Gillian will be able to talk about it better than what I can. But what she talks about and the reasoning around the HIT is one of the things that people do experience during exercise is neuromuscular fatigue, and that's what causes that onset of symptoms. And so by resting, you're giving your body chance to basically refuel and recharge. So the way that she described it is that when we want to do a movement like, jump up high on something or, sprint for 30 seconds or something like that, we basically have to recruit our muscles. So we have a band of muscle fibers, and what happens is it recruits one fiber at a time. And as we do the movement, it goes round the fibers. And what happens is by the time it gets back up to the first fiber, all the stores of energy in that fibre have had chance to replenish as it's gone round each one. Now, what happens in MS is, as we know, if there's been any nerve damage, there might be less innervation of that fibre. So you might be working with potentially 50% less muscle fibre than someone without MS. So what happens is, as you recruit each fibre, as it gets round to the first one, there hasn't been enough time for those stores to replenish, and that's when you start to experience symptoms. So if you rest after a set of activity, you're giving those fibers time to replenish the stores of energy that they need to fuel your exercise. And so that's why that rest activity is really important.
That's fantastic.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Laura.
No, I find it really interesting that we're talking about diet and exercise, because I only got diagnosed a year and a half ago, but I seen 2 neurologists back home in Ireland and 1 here in New Zealand, and no neurologist has ever mentioned to me about diet or exercise or the importance of it. They always just talk about scans and the drugs. And that's it. So I wonder, has anyone else experienced that as well? I find it really interesting because I work in healthcare and I know how important it is, but no one ever talks about it.
They don't normally say, like whenever I go, I don't think they bring it up, you know, in the conversation. It's they do talk about the EDS, because they're there doing your yearly checkup and they're talking about your symptoms and your EDSS scale and whether you've passed or failed. And so they don't really bring it up and push it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of research into it, but no one enforces it or encourages it. Well, I find that they don't. But I don't know if anyone else experiences that.
Sometimes I think it is, I would say for myself, I'm on diet and exercise. I'm no longer on any DMTs. And why I did my own research was out of frustrations, because when I started DMTs is when my MS started playing up. When I didn't even know I have MS, so I was not on any treatment or anything. I was okay and, going on with my life and all. But when I was diagnosed and I was started on medication, then I started having these major relapses, which up to today, at one stage, I could not even do anything for myself. Wheelchair bound, you have to be showered and all that. But when I took things into my own hands, because I realized why, including something like Ocrevus. Ocrevus, I was told it's going to be my game changer. I'm going to be back on my 2 feet. But again, within 8 weeks, I had a very major relapse with the left side weakness, complete weakness. So when I was in Australia at the time, when I moved here and I realized I'm getting more sick when I'm getting this medication, and I decided to make a decision to research on my own and not use anything. And I put myself on diet and exercising, anti-inflammatory diet and anti-detox diet, and then a lot of exercising. I found that I became far much better, and I went back to work. I'm working full-time. I'm a nurse. I'm working full-time. I'm independent. So sometimes I think it's a matter of taking charge of your body and of your life, because there's so much information out there, researching on it and checking what is really can work for you. You can only try. It does not mean that everybody is going to be successful with it, but you can only try and see what is going to work for you.
Thank you for that, Josephine. Absolutely. Jess, we were talking about the sort of exercise in the last sort of 10-15 minutes, but what about nutrition? What sort of views or information have you got around the nutritional side?
Yeah, so I know that there are a lot of different diets out there, and there are a lot of different opinions on diet. And I kind of take a stance of, if it's working for you, keep doing it. If it doesn't cause you too much stress and you're not missing, and by cutting out certain food groups, you're not missing vitamins and minerals, and you're feeling okay, and and you're happy to live your life that way with certain restrictions and things like that. Do what feels right for you. And the evidence will be in itself. If you feel great, carry on. But I guess our general kind of approach when people ask me is that I say that there's no one single diet that will prevent you from having a relapse. So when we think about the role of diets, we think, so if you have celiac disease, you'll have a diet that doesn't include any gluten. If you've got diabetes, you're going to follow a diet that doesn't have excessive sugar. So there is no single diet that's just going to absolutely cure your MS and make, stop you from having relapses. But what diets will do is really help support all the things that we want to support. So help support your brain health, which will help keep your neuroplasticity well. Help maintain a healthy weight, which will also reduce your risk of further relapses, and also, fuel your body if you're exercising. So there's lots of things that the exercise does do to help support, keep a healthy brain and reduce your risk of relapse. So what we kind of recommend is basically kind of following a Mediterranean diet. So when we looked at sort of the Walls protocol and the Jelinek diet and put them all together, the kind of overwhelming theme is that, lots of vegetables and fresh fruit, minimal meat intake. So, once a week, once or twice a week, making sure that you're getting your omegas through your fish, trying to avoid processed food and takeaways of food that's high in like the treat foods that we think when we think of the old school pyramid that sit at the top. So that's what we recommend. But I think, as I have said to many people in the past, we just have to be careful when in the position that I'm in, recommending certain things, especially if it doesn't have a solid scientific base around it. Now, if there was a diet that said that, yes, you would cure your MS and it would, stop you from having relapses, and we had sufficient scientific evidence to back that, then I would be singing it from the rooftops, but we just don't have that yet.
Ingrid, what were you going to add there?
I was just going to ask a question, Jess. You were talking about the HIIT and how you go really, really fast and then you stop for 5 minutes or do whatever. What if you exercise like Eamon on the cross trainer? He's going hard at it, and you see that and he tires you out just looking at him, and then he stops. But like I'm on the ARC trainer, which is like a cross trainer, and I can't go as fast as Eamon. So how would it work for me? And when I'm on the treadmill, I'll walk, but I'm not running. So how does that sort of work for me? Should I have a break or not?
So well, and once again, probably really good question targeted for like Tara and things like that. But basically what you want to be doing is causing some kind of puffing and panting. So getting out of breath is really good for you. And that's what, raises the heart rate. So everyone's obviously level to where to get out of breath is going to be different depending on your fitness, your mobility and things like that. So if you can't get out of breath using your legs, then looking at what you can do with your upper limbs to get out of breath. Is that punching a boxing bag, or is that, how are you going to get out of puff that way?
Right. Okay.
But any movement's still better than no movement.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'll just say, sorry, interrupt. There's about 3 of us now that do aquagym. Goes to the gym at aquagym, and it's fantastic.
Where do you go, Laura?
Where do I go? QE2.
Yep. Awesome.
There's QE2, and Judy goes to QE2, and another lady that had the stem cell thing, and I can't remember her name. She does it. There's 3 of us that go. It's bloody hard and it's fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. Was that the lady that went to Russia for her stem cell?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I met her yesterday actually with Elspeth and Deb. She's
Elizabeth,
amazing.
that's right, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Laura.
She's going to be a grandma soon.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Laura, can I
Hello.
ask you this? When you go swimming, because this is my fear always, is after the exercise, do you actually have the ability, in physical ability, to then get dressed? Because I'm normally just walking up and down in swimming pool and then I'm exhausted.
Yeah. I think I've not a problem with it. No, I don't. It's cold. If you can get cold, you get cold water to start with, then you get hot after the hour. No, I don't have a problem getting out, to be honest. But at QE2, some places they do for disability people, so you can have assistance.
I think because it's cold, it's better, isn't it?
And because it's cold, it's better, I think. Apparently they say that stops you getting dementia, apparently.
Wow.
Okay.
Apparently.
Rebecca's just put on here that she's given me a link, which I will forward to everyone, of a guy that's got useful information on the HIIT and shares his experience for getting into HIIT cardio while seated. So I will share that. Thank you so much, Rebecca. That's a great link. I will share that with everyone.
The other thing I'll mention as well is HIIT, and that's probably goes on from what you're talking about, Ingrid. HIIT doesn't have to just be cardio, so they do recommend that you kind of incorporate 2 sessions of resistance HIIT as well. So that's making your muscles strong, but still using that on and then rest period, and then on and rest period with. So that might be something to work towards, Ingrid, as well.
Fantastic.
And I'm just going to mention
talk about HIIT. Sorry, you can do aqua HIIT as well. It's only a half-an-hour class.
Oh wow! And that's Ramakiri too as well.
Yeah.
Oh, this is awesome to know. And I know some members may know, but you know, it's great information for us to be able to pass on.
No worries. I'll see you there then.
I was just going to add to Laura Sheridan as well, if you're still there, Laura.
I think she's still there, but she's just on mute.
Okay.
So,
was that lovely? Was that yeah, I think the problem is with the neurologist talking about diet and exercise and things like that they know about it and they would love to, but I think it always comes down to time constraints. So for them, their specialty lies in scans and medications and looking at the disease condition and how things are going, and then what they rely on us for, the nurses, is to talk about these holistic things. And unfortunately, not everywhere in the world has a MS nurse attached to the service, and then even as we know in Christchurch, we haven't had MS nurses forever either. So it's about growing that role and that support for people.
Absolutely.
Elspeth, I found it really interesting that it wasn't something that was ever encouraged in my appointments. And it's just something that I've learned through my own research and talking to other people with MS, what helps them. Because I suppose the whole idea of living with MS is trying to live as healthy and as well as you can. And if diet and exercise are going to help, why not encourage it? I just found it interesting that it was never mentioned. But, yeah. Thank you.
The MS Australia website has some good information on diet on there, along with some links as well. So just reinforcing what Jessica said. So it's msaustralia.org.au. Yeah, and they have some international links and some research links to it as well. So, yeah.
Brilliant. I'll look that one out as well, Elspeth. And what I'll do in the email is just do a whole lot of bullet points with all of those contacts, because we've got some great resources coming out here. I've got another one that's just been sent through. I believe this one will be from I've lost you on here, but it's on the aqua fitness, aqua HIIT, so I will include that one as well. Yeah, any other questions at all?
The other thing I think we kind of covered diet, exercise. Something else that's really important is keeping your mind active. So when we're thinking about protecting your brain against any cognitive changes over a lifetime, keeping your mind active is really important. So looking at things like, doing puzzles and challenging the mind in different ways, learning new skills, trying something new, that's very good for building new connections. Social interaction is important. Just keeping yourself active and going.
Fantastic. That's good. Does anyone currently do that quite regularly?
Yep.
Fantastic. Awesome.
What about I've been really looking for where I can get somebody to assess me. I have a food drop. The food is strong because I exercise, I walk a lot, but I still limp a lot because I think a bit of coordination course, my left side is the weaker side. And I feel if I could get somebody to assess me, maybe could advise me on what to do, or even the shoes to wear, the best shoes to wear. I don't know. I see from their website something they call A4, AFO. Some people saying that's what they use when they have food drop, and then they walk better.
I'll let Elspeth answer this one.
Yeah, so we do, along with Deb and myself, we do also have a physical therapist on staff. Her name is Tara. So yeah, feel free to give the office a call and she can assess that, and if she needs to make a referral on for an ankle foot orthoses or orthotic device, then we can do that. So yeah, Tara's probably your best bet there, I think.
Therapist?
Physical therapist, yes.
Okay. At the Christchurch office?
At the MS and Parkinson's Society.
Yep. Okay then. Thank you.
Josephine, I was referred to Burwood through my doctor for something, and they put me on to get an AFO, so I'm just getting one fitted, and yeah, so it's really good. You'll find some Tara. Will it be Tara Elspeth? But yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll talk to Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
What about the functional electrical stimulation devices? I've read or seen reports from overseas that they can be quite useful sometimes with foot drop and that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they have been used quite widely, and sometimes for spasticity as well.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely. Usually that's through like physio initiated, so have the assessment and then see what they recommend. But yeah, no, definitely they definitely have purpose, and sometimes even for bladder control as well. That can be helpful. Yeah.
What is that?
The electrodes that you put on, and they basically stimulate different muscles. I tried that. Didn't work for me.
But there's different forms of that, isn't there? Because some of the smarter ones actually help with your walking gait if you've got some weakness in the leg. So they actually time the electrical charge with your gait.
Wow.
As you're walking.
Yeah. Jess, we've got a question here. Are there any trials coming up for relapsing remitting MS? And also, can you talk through what the process is for stem cell transplant to get approval?
Yeah, so as you know, in New Zealand, we don't do stem cell transplant here. We have started a committee to look into being able to start it here, and that committee got together. You know, it's been in the making for about 6 months, or about a year even. There's a few issues, just capacity. So the haematology, it would have to be run through the haematology department, and they're experiencing probably even larger shortages than what we are at the moment in terms of staff and waiting lists and things like that. So that's one issue. The other thing is just I guess there's a lot of ethics and policies and paperwork that needs to go on before we can get it up and running here. The patient group that we would see it being viable in would be patients who are currently on disease modifying treatment, so one of the MS treatments, and who have very active disease, so people who have failed some of our stronger medications, so had relapses whilst still on the stronger medications. So we would probably only be looking at doing 1 to 2 patients a year, and it would be just for that group of patients.
I've got another question here, just going back to an earlier part of the conversation. Karen was wondering if the relapses that you have or you've had whilst in relapsing remitting and you've recovered from, do they return once you've entered secondary progressive, just thinking about the tattoo concept. I think I've read that out right.
Well, yes. So typically they're the symptoms that you might experience when you get into the progressive phase. So it's hard to tell exactly what you will experience. And sometimes I hear people as well that they, may have had a high spinal cord relapse, so in the top of their spine, and they may have had some tingling and sensation changes in their arms. And then, 3 years down the track, they're now getting some intermittent symptoms in their arms that's happening more often. And that doesn't mean that they're in the progressive phase, but we don't really have any rhyme or reason why exactly 3 years later these symptoms have suddenly got worse. And we'll often rescan, and there won't be anything new at that point. And it's just that those symptoms have decided to come back at that point in time, and it's not something that's that well understood.
I hope that helps, Karen. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's any other questions I've missed on here. Jess, you talked to the trials coming up for our MS, didn't you?
There are still current trials going. Most of the trials are for or were for medications that we now have available. So there aren't really any new trials at all for relapsing remitting MS. Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Just on that point too, we've just appointed a new research nurse. So for the last 6 months, we haven't had a neurology research nurse in place. So we've just appointed someone. I think she's working maybe 0.8. So she'll be working across the MS trials and some stroke trials.
Oh, that's exciting news. Yeah. Oh, will you be able to let us know how that goes sort of over the coming sort of year or so? That'd be great.
Yeah, she's a hoot. So.
Just
Ingrid.
a quick question. Oh, sorry, Ingrid.
No.
You go.
There you go, Eamon.
Last year, when I talked to Deb for my yearly appointment, she mentioned that there might be an app that she was potentially going to get me to go on, and that it would help you go on my phone and help measure not even my disease progress, but what's going on. But I forgot to ask her about that again this year when I talked to her, and I was wondering if you knew anything about that. I think it was one that came out of Australia, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Floodlight. Does that ring a bell?
No, I don't even remember a name, but yep.
Yeah, potentially that. And the long story is no, I haven't heard anything more on that. So I think what happened with that was that for us to run the trial here with that app, we had to send everybody for regular MRIs, and the drug company or the trial company weren't going to provide funding for that. So that pretty much ruled that out for us. Is my understanding.
I'm using an app called Emily or Emilyn.
Oh, yes.
Milyn.
Yep. I'm also on it.
I'm trialing it too. I started yesterday.
Oh, wow. And how do you find it, Linda?
I actually find it very good. It does help me to keep track. But I have to admit, sometimes I just go like, no, I'm too tired. I'm not doing this, because it is just 2 or 3 minutes. But I just go like, no, I can focus on something else now.
Yeah. But I think listening to your own body is so important as well. So, yeah.
Just as we're talking, I'm looking at the MS Australia website, the nutrition page, and I see coffee there's some studies supporting coffee to help reduce rates of progression. Yahoo!
Fantastic.
Ingrid, you
just when we were talking about stem cell, about a few years ago, a number of years ago, we had 5 people that had been one had been to Mexico and had been to Russia and stuff, and talked about how it went and things like that. And I wondered if one day we could get the 5 people to come back and see from what they were like then to how things have gone for them now.
That sounds like an excellent idea. I think that would be really fascinating, just to see the progress or what's happened on their journey. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've done a course through the MS Australia. It's a free course that you do on MS, and they actually say that stem cell treatment only lasts for 5 years, and then it comes back.
Ooh.
Yeah, so basically the studies have shown that people have experienced some relapsing of their condition after 5 years. Doesn't mean, I mean, it could last longer for other people. We've always known that it's not a cure. It's a treatment. So it's like our treatments that we have now. It prevents relapses. So that's always something to keep in mind when thinking about, you know, is this right for me?
It's pretty tough treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we would only reserve it for people who, you know, the treatments that we have here aren't working, basically, because yeah, it's pretty tough on the body.
I'm in a support group back in the UK, and I'm seeing lots and lots more people now being referred to for stem cell treatment in Mexico and in the UK as well. And a lot of them have very little disability. They're like young, they have EDSS scores of 0, and their neurologists are trying to get them to have the treatment before they become unwell. I'm just kind of wondering what your opinion on that would be, because it'd be something that, not necessarily that I'm considering, but it's interesting that a lot of people are doing it.
Yeah. Look, I think in definitely with us as well, and what I can see in Australia, that the kind of ideal, kind of perfect patient for stem cell is someone who is still, you know, relatively young in terms of young in their condition, and so how long they've had it, someone with a lower EDSS score, and someone that does have quite active disease. For us, it would be, we would, like I said, prefer to save it until we had to use it. Just because of the risks associated with it. But yeah, like some places are going quite early. So we definitely agree with that point of view. It should be, it is, the ideal candidate is someone who is younger and a lower EDSS, because in terms of how well they do, that's what the research supports, that kind of person. But we in New Zealand would still take a very conservative approach in terms of we wouldn't ever send anyone for stem cell without at least giving what we have got first, because they might be, you know, relapse free for 6 years on, you know, fingolimod or tecfidera, and then, you know, that we've saved them from potentially something quite serious as stem cell transplant if they didn't need it.
I think just one of the other issue, I don't know what the right words are, one of the other things to consider is, I know when I worked in the States, I had patients with motor neuron diseases and what have you, and they were interested in stem cell transplants and what have you. But, you know, there is financial in going out of the country to foreign countries for these treatments. And there is also, of course, a financial burden, and then also follow up. You know, if something untoward or whatever happens, and then just receiving health care in a foreign country as well. So I think there are a few things to consider, and obviously, you know, it's everybody's choice or whatever, but I do just want to sort of put that out there as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
I also did that course, Linda, and I definitely didn't get that impression that they said there was a 5-year limit on it.
Okay.
It would be interesting. Sorry, Ingrid.
I was just going to say, the conversations and stuff, I've always thought that they can't give a definite.
Yeah.
And so, because even though it's been around for a long time, they couldn't say to you, look, this is only going to last 5 years, because they don't know.
And that's the same with all the treatments we have, we say this medication prevents relapses by 50%, or this medication, reduces relapses by 80%, but we can't say to that individual person, you'll be relapse free for 3 years, then you'll have a relapse. It's so unique, and we just don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah. I've got a couple of really great links here again that I will forward on, but Jess Bryan has shared something, an episode that she had with her friend on Spotify. Her friend Rachel, who had an HSCT for her MS, she interviewed her for her podcast, and although she said she's biased, it is an interesting chat about the process. Did you want to add anything to that, Jess?
Yeah, so Rachel also talks about the whole process. She details it from deciding to get it and going to Singapore. Obviously, this was pre-COVID, so it might be completely different now. But she also, if I remember, she also talks about what the doctor was saying when she was in Singapore, getting HSCT for MS patients. So that might be interesting as well. I remember that I think the doctor did say something about they do prefer to have people, not too far progressed or whatever, and that, stem cell is essentially just halting you where you're at. It's not going to cure your symptoms or anything.
Well, I will share that.
There is quite a good, and I can't remember exactly what it is, which isn't very helpful, but there is a man on YouTube that speaks about his journey through Russia. Exactly the same, step by step, but literally video as well, so you can see him, and he talks about all the highlights, he talks about all the gory moments, he talks about feeling unwell with nausea, he talks about when he feels great. It's a really good breakdown of exactly what happens each day.
And I guess we've got Selma Blair's documentary coming out soon, and that's what it's all about as well. So I also just wanted to say goodbye, everybody. I just have to run away. Laura and I are off to play bingo, so it's been lovely to see you all. So I'm just going to log off now, but I just wanted to say bye and thank you so much.
Both have fun, won't you? It's wonderful that you're going off to do that. It's benefits of level 2.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for contributing.
Thank
you.
Yeah, I've got another one here from EP. There's a new paper out comparing diets, so I've got a link for that, which I will post up for everybody. And then I've just had another message before we finish. Oh yes, Ingrid, I'll pass over to you.
Just really, really quickly. If you like a bit of sailing, even if you don't, but I've organised Oceans of Hope just in Nelson for it's probably from about 9 o'clock till 2 o'clock on the 28th of November. It's a Sunday, and we've got little hamster boats, and you sit quite low in them, and you use a joystick, so you don't have to get up and move side to side. And they have hoists and things as well. It's with a group called Sailability. So it only costs $15, and you can sail for about an hour, and then lunch is put on. So if you feel like something to look forward to and go and spend a weekend in Nelson, give me a yell.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. What was the date again of that? The 2nd, did you say?
28th of November.
Oh, I don't know where that goes. Fantastic. Oh, wow. We'd love to hear how that goes as well.
Yeah, so I'll give you some information if you can.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Yes, I would love to have more information. Just Ingrid, is it just for people with MS, or can our support people also participate?
It's MS, and your support person can as well. And if you can go with a buddy, or if you know how to sail, you can just do it yourself. Otherwise, you'll have a buddy in there, and they'll show you what to do. But then you can sail it on your own.
Oh.
Perfect. I would love to do it. Please send me information.
I will. Kate, can somebody give me your email?
Absolutely. I will connect you up and do a little intro.
I'll get you to send it all out.
Perfect.
And then you can hop in and send me an email, Linda. It'll be cool.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Jess, I don't know where the last hour and a half's gone. It's gone very, very quickly. I want to say a huge thank you for your knowledge, for your time. I realise this is out of hours and you're a font of knowledge, but thank you so much for giving us your expertise and coming here to answer so many questions and provide so much information to us. It's very valued, and I know that you are very valued amongst everyone. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be able to connect, and like you said, to be able to do it online, even though we couldn't meet in person, was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
But also to hear, to hear and bounce ideas off everybody else, and to hear, where people are trying new things, and it's so important to share that knowledge and even, share it with me as well, so then I can look into these things and I can make recommendations to other people, and it's been really valuable for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we totally get that you're working under extraordinary stretched resources, so thank you for all you do and for going the extra mile, as I say, to be here this evening. And I just want to acknowledge both of our nurses, as well as Jess mentioned earlier on. We are very privileged to have 2 registered nurses within MS and Parkinson's Canterbury. It does put us in a very in a great position for our members. So thank you to Elspeth and to Deb for all the work that they do tirelessly, and also to Tara, who's not online, but having that clinical team really is so valuable. But thank you all for being a part of it tonight. I hope it's been nice and relaxed, and you've felt a part of a group. I mean, it is different from being there in person, but I think this is wonderful that anyone from across Canterbury can look back and watch this and just be able to listen in. So it's definitely got its benefits to it, being able to do it digitally like this. So yeah, but I will pull together all of those things that we've discussed tonight and get that out by email to you all. And if there's anything else that we can do, please just drop me an email, drop the nurses an email, and we'll take it from there. And the next meeting, our next peer support group, is on the 4th of November, so 6 weeks today. Yeah, Thursday the 4th of November.
Will it be online again?
It could be. It really depends on the levels. Under level 2, it is incredibly hard to meet in person, especially when we're meant to keep such a distance as well. So it could possibly be online. The other thing that we've been toying with is whether, if we are in person, whether there's any way we can get sort of a digital link, because so many people are coming in from different areas that it'd be fantastic to have a digital link that people could watch in on. So that is something we're looking at. My technical expertise hasn't stretched that far just yet, but I will look into it and see what we can do. So yeah.
Because for myself, I would love to be part of this group, but I won't be traveling in. So if it's online, I'll participate.
That is fantastic. And I think it's definitely the way forward, Linda, is for us to do a combination of different offerings for people. I think then it kind of balances it out. We know there's a lot of people that are quite rural as well, and again, they can't travel in the fatigue that goes with it, and especially those who are working as well, when they're having to navigate across the city and come from work, it can be very tiring. So we'll look as a strategy. We will look at what we can offer, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Well, thank you. And yeah, no, there's a couple of people coming through here saying that having both options for an event would be fantastic. So I will definitely pass that on. But thank you all. Enjoy your evening. And thanks again to Jess Deacon. You've been wonderful.
Thanks for organising, Kate.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
It's been great.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.